I teach Benjamin Franklin's autobiography, his memoir, I usually call it, almost every year to undergraduates and graduate students at the university. And whenever I start teaching that book, I always ask them what they know about Benjamin Franklin. They know the usual things. Lightning and the experiments with lightning. Some of them will know Poor Richard's Almanac, and nearly all of them will have some vague memory that he invented bifocals. They don't know when, they don't know why, but shortly after starting to read his book, they begin to realize that bifocal vision is something like the heart of the Franklin College. It's the Franklin College of Arts and of Sciences, of two ways of seeing. Franklin was committed to the double-visioned implications of that ideal, and all his life insisted that education would not necessarily be a matter of specialization, but a matter of breadth. When the governor of Georgia invited Abraham Baldwin to come down here and help set up an educational system for the state in the mid-1780s, he knew he was getting a dyed-in-the-wool Connecticut Yankee. And he probably knew he was getting a Connecticut Yankee whose education and whose ideals had been marked in part by the influence of Benjamin Franklin. Now, Baldwin and Franklin wouldn't get to know each other in the Constitutional Convention for another couple years, but when Baldwin came down here to help establish what became the University of Georgia, he brought with him some of the ideals that Franklin connected with college education from the very earliest years of his life. Particularly at this time of year, in spring, students often wonder, and their parents often wonder, what a college education is supposed to achieve. At the Franklin College, I think we follow Benjamin Franklin's ideals. A college education is meant to accomplish at least a couple of things. It's to serve as the surest foundation, those were his words, the surest foundation for individual happiness that he could possibly imagine. And a college education was meant to create men and women who would serve the public good. So service and happiness, his joint ideals, another instance, I suppose, of Benjamin Franklin's bifocals at work. Happiness is an inside goal. It's something we feel within ourselves, privately, sometimes unexpressed. But service to the general good is easy to measure by looking at the trajectory of a career. And for Franklin, service followed a very strict trajectory. Service to mankind, to one's country, friends, and family. Each circle of service getting smaller as he descended from mankind as a whole to family, the place where we all begin. But you never lose the perspective that your service is directed towards the good of mankind as a whole. In this sense, though, Benjamin Franklin, our founding college name, is local and important to us personally, and probably important to us as Americans. He's important to us as an exemplary citizen of our species, of mankind as a whole. It seems strange, I suppose, to have an English professor talking about Benjamin Franklin. My colleagues in history feel that all the time. We have a kind of fruitful disagreement with one another concerning who knows more about Benjamin Franklin, me or Peter Hoffer in history, or Michael Winship in history. But Franklin didn't make the simple disciplinary division between history and literary study that we take for granted when we go to LeConte Hall or to Park Hall to take courses. History was a literary discipline, and literature was a historical discipline, and I really do like the blending. And that blending is a great challenge to almost any imagination. It's a challenge we don't always rise to as constructively as we should in life, but Franklin expected us to. In fact, when he designed a college for the citizens of Philadelphia, he organized it around the idea of history, but he broke history up into three pieces. He said the college curriculum should be the history of man and of man's institutions. But that meant, from Franklin's standpoint, an integrated study of geography, religion, philosophy, culture, languages, and literature. Everything that we associate with the humanities and now the social sciences. Then a college should incorporate a study of the history of nature, or natural history, what we now call the traditional sciences, biology, chemistry, physics, mathematics, and so on. And he added a third element of history to the college's organization, the history of commerce. Commerce meaning both mechanical engineering, the ingenuity to make devices and things to ease human labor or to ornament human life, but also the history of man's commercial engagement with his fellow man and with the planet as a whole. Whenever I walk along this quadrangle and look at Old College, I think that it's not just that building, it's the ensemble of buildings up here that resemble or emblematize what Benjamin Franklin thought a great college or university should be.